Hi, I'm Ashlei Williams, the Assistant Editor of the Wholesaler magazine as well as PHC News magazine, and I am back in Romeoville, Illinois at the headquarters of Chicago Tube and Iron, here to speak with Dr. Donald McNeeley for the 6th episode of the McNeeley View. And Dr. McNeeley is a well-known PBF executive. He's the CEO of Chicago Tube and Iron, and he's also a professor at Northwestern University School of Engineering. And Dr. McNeeley is one of our columnists, and today we're going to kind of piggyback on a previous column that he wrote, but take it in a different direction. We're going to look at the role of education in the manufacturing industry. And in a previous episode, I spoke with you and your Masters of Engineering students about kind of getting college students and college campuses excited about the manufacturing industry. And today I want to more so start off by hearing from you about where you think the greatest professional need is in the manufacturing industry. Is it engineers? Is it salespeople? Is it management? Can we just kind of start there with you telling me where you think the greatest need is?
A perfect starting place, Ashley, and let me just start by anchoring a reality, an absolute reality that's irrefutable. That's why I like dealing with facts and numbers, because if you deal with facts and numbers, you remove the emotion from a subject. And a lot of these subjects they're emotionally charged. But fact, 2020 in the United States, the demand for technical jobs, technical skills, will be 123 million. My projection suggests that the supply will be 50 million. The supply will be 50 million, the demand will be 123. That has profound implications for our standard of living, our society, our workforces, our ability to compete. And I think that's a wake-up call for the United States educational system. So, specific to your question, the greatest need and the growing need and the epic need will be math and science technical skills going forward for the workforce.
And as an educator in higher education, can you speak on the role that higher education plays in the manufacturing industry? What level of education do you see as a necessity?
Let me lay the foundation for your question by talking about the educational system in the U.S. Now, I want to take some pain here, and I know our time is tight, but many people that criticize teachers in the educational system are only able to articulate that frustration because of the knowledge that a teacher gave them. So that's an interesting paradox, and I'd hate to be on the receiving end of that if I were a teacher, because I want to say I ought to just, it's interesting how we turn the tables. But truth be told, there is a problem at the elementary and the middle school and the high school level. If you look at the educational system, the public schools in particular, they in effect have a monopoly. Because if you cannot afford a private school, which most people cannot, your classroom is going to be filled because your market's going to come from that zip code. So where's the incentive for that environment, that grade school or high school, to really look at what are the needs of society, what are the needs of employers going forward, and how can we adjust our curriculum? That bureaucracy is so encumbering that it's very hard to change the curriculum in those middle schools. As a result, the world is passing us by with their math and science skills. So what we need to do when they get to undergrad in a technical field or grad, you really have to start at the basic level, because for many people, they've had no exposure. I mean, students today are going to undergrad education and they're picking their majors by what has the least amount of math. So we have a significant shortage in industry of math and science and technical skills. I'll give you one more data point. 23% of all businesses interviewed, all businesses surveyed, say that their growth is going to be mitigated or stalled because of a lack of skilled workers.
My next question is kind of devil's advocate and a two-part also. So when I speak to veterans in the industry, you hear about people who came off the factory floor and moved up into sales or moved up into management. My first question is that still a possibility in our day and age? And my second question is, if not, are there economic indicators behind it not being a possibility?
So I think if you do talk to the veterans, you will find people that ended up at their employer by chance, stayed by choice, started out in the plant, and now they're running these enterprises. In many cases, they actually own the enterprise. There was a generation where you could do that. Do I think that's still possible in the future? I do, but I think it's less probable. So understand the difference between possibilities and probabilities. They can get there, but the odds are much greater than they were as opposed to my generation coming up. So what's interesting is there's a whole science surrounding this, and I'll try to connect the dots as quickly and as efficiently as I can. So historically in our industry, we needed all people. If somebody had the gift of gab, they had a good personality, maybe they were a communications major, maybe they were an athlete, maybe they had a good golf game, they could establish a rapport with that customer. There were places in our industry for them. There still are, but less of them. You've got to have game. So what's happening now is as manufacturing is transitioning from a developed country to developing countries, we're offshoring an awful lot of our industry. Now, we will never abandon industry. We will always have a manufacturing basis here in America. For every manufacturing job, we support 3.5 service jobs. But now bringing that full circle, as the manufacturing goes internationally to low labor countries, we need to compete with those low labor countries. We have to, or we have to abandon our manufacturing. How do we compete with people with labor costs a fraction of ours? You do that with automation. And if you're automating our industry, if you're automating our plants, you're automating them with what? Machinery. You need to have a technical aptitude to run that machinery. So the future belongs to those that are schooled in technical background.
And I think it's hard to have the education conversation in our industry without looking at trade schools. Can you speak on the role and or the responsibilities that you think trade schools have?
So trade schools are interesting. There's fewer of them. I think there is a need for them, and I've got an answer in that regard that I wish somebody would take and run with. So, for example, you would learn a trade. One of the trades I'm talking about, welding, drywalling, carpentry, electrical. You'd learn that through the union. So the union has very comprehensive apprenticeship programs that train tradesmen, train these crafts. There were always trade schools that were non-related to the union. In high school, when I came up, you had wood shop, auto shop, you had metal shop, and those were called the exploratories. Well, there's no funding for those exploratories anymore. So where is the youth to garner those skills, if you will? And I think one of the opportunities we have is the community colleges. I think community colleges are a wonderful untapped resource for our country. And I think we need to reset the community colleges for technical training. Now, let me quickly punctuate. You know how all of our politicians and all of our celebrities take advantage of being commencement speakers throughout the nation? Your alma mater, Spelman, have had a who's list of commencement speakers. We have had at Northwestern. The Vice President of the United States is Joe Biden. His wife is Dr. Jill Biden, a professor at a community college. What a great optic that would have sent, that in 8 years of Obama's presidency, he would have been the commencement speaker at Joe Biden's community college.
And to close, is there a message that you would give to fellow executives like yourself about how they should be considering education in their hiring decisions among their employees? Is there a message that you would like to send out?
First of all, right now there's 4 million people in the United States that have been out of work for over a year. When you're out of work for over a year, that resume gets a little toxic. People want to wonder why. And for those people that are out of work over a year, that are over the age of 50, that's really a problem area. So I would suggest to the people unemployed to use that opportunity to enhance the skill set to something where there's a demand. Do something to improve technical aptitude, mathematic aptitude, science aptitude. To the employers, it really isn't just their problem, it's our problem. Frankly, it's a bigger problem for us, and we've got a role in fixing that. As they say, are you here with a solution, or are you part of the problem? I think what we need to do is recognize that the next iteration of management, the next generation coming along, is the generation to which we are handing off our life's work. So what we need to do, specific to your question, you need to have tuition reimbursement. College is so expensive today. If that employee is willing to put the time and the energy on their own time, in addition to balancing family and other responsibilities, the least we can do is help them along financially. Also, internships. Find people in the summer, make room for them. We all have room for 4 or 5 part-time jobs. We all have drawers of projects that simply back up. Bring high school kids in. Bring college kids in. For 12, 15 bucks an hour, what a great exposure they have, what a great opportunity we have to tap them down the line. Career days. There's bankers and there's lawyers there and there's airline pilots. Make sure there's manufacturing represented at those career days. Make sure we're getting out in front. We also have to do college campus recruiting, but not just college campuses, community colleges as well, and high school career days. But I also want to note and acknowledge our industry is good about this. There's a lot of generosity in our industry, but we need to do a lot more, or we're going to inherit the problem.
Well, thank you, Dr. McNeeley, for taking the time again to speak with me. For our readers at home, if you would like to hear more from Dr. McNeeley, you can visit us at www.thewholesaler.com or phcnews.com.